That is from where, that was like the parliament or the seat of government on earth, the presence of God, the Shekinah glory, between what's called the two covering cherubs. Interesting. I will cast thee as profane out of the mountain of God, O covering cherub. Who was that? That was said to Lucifer. We'll get to that in these lectures. Now, the sanctuary has tremendous symbolic fulfillment. But it's not only symbolic on one level, it's prophetic and symbolic and spiritual. Many of the items have got many different fulfillments. And we'll get into these in time. But it's the symbolism within the sanctuary is much deeper than just on a physical level. And I want to show you what I mean. Psalm 73 verses 2, 3, and 17 explain something. But as for me, the psalmist writes, my feet had almost stumbled, my steps had nearly slipped when I saw the prosperity of the wicked. So here the psalmist is writing, he says, I was looking around and I saw the drug addicts, the drug lords, and the thieves, and the cash in transit bosses, the ones that are attacking all the money and the doing corruption in the business. And my feet almost slipped when I saw how these wicked people were prospering. Read on. Until I went into the sanctuary of God, and then I understood their end. Isn't that beautiful? Here the psalmist says, even he almost lost his faith when he saw, it looked to him like God was helping him prosper until he went into the sanctuary of God, and then he understood the end of the wicked. Now, where in the sanctuary do you think is depicted the end of the wicked? We looked at it just now. Here's a graphic to show you. You had the door, and then you have the altar, and then you have the laver, and then the temple. Where is the end of the wicked depicted in this picture? Well, take for a moment, just have a look. As you walk in the door, what's the very first thing that you see? You see the altar is closed around the three sides underneath and open in front. What comes out of the bottom of the altar? Ash. Now, does the Bible not say the wicked will be as stubble under our feet? The wicked will be consumed away like Sodom and Gomorrah? Like ash? Yes. And even the end of the wicked, in other words, hell, is depicted inside the sanctuary of God. All biblical truths and all Christian truths in the New Testament are depicted in the Old Testament sanctuary system. There is no other work subject which so fully unites all parts of the sacred volume, that's the Bible, into one harmonious whole as this subject of the sanctuary. Every gospel truth centers in the sanctuary service. That's a big statement. Every gospel truth centers in the sanctuary service. Can that be? Can that be that the Christian gospel, as we know, the New Testament, in other words, is somehow depicted in the sanctuary of the Old Testament? Do we in the 21st century have to understand the Old Testament? Surely that's just for the Jews. Surely we don't need to understand the sanctuary. Well, to understand the sanctuary is to understand something called typology. Typology is basically A pointing to B. Let me explain to you what it says in Baker's Dictionary of Theology. It says, a type is a shadow cast on the pages of Old Testament history by a truth whose full embodiment or antitype is found in the New Testament revelation. In other words, you've got a type in the Old Testament, but it's not fulfilled until you look in the New Testament and you find what's called the antitype. The antitype is the fulfillment of the type. Now, if you were to cut the Bible in half, get rid of the old system, and just keep the new system, in other words, the New Testament, and you just read about the antitype, many things wouldn't make sense unless you referred back to the Old Testament to find out what the type was about, which makes you understand or lets you understand the antitype. Here's an example. John 1:29. The next day, John the Baptist seeth Jesus coming unto him and said, Behold, the Lamb of God which takes away the sins of the world. Question. Was Jesus covered in wool? Did he go meh as he walked down? No, of course not. So what on earth did John the Baptist mean when he said, behold the Lamb of God? He doesn't look like a sheep. You see, John the Baptist understood the Old Testament type to understand the New Testament fulfillment of that type, which is known as the antitype. So when John saw Jesus and said to him, behold the Lamb of God, he was referring to the fulfillment of the Old Testament in the New Testament, Christ. To understand that, we have to go back to the sanctuary. You see, it explains in Exodus 12, verses 3, and I'm going to take portions out between verse 3 and verse 47. Read it with me. This is the first Passover sacrifice. In the 10th day, take for yourself a lamb without blemish. On the 14th day, Israel shall kill it at twilight. It is the Lord's Passover. You shall not break one of its bones. Right? Those were the constructs that were given to Moses to say, tell your people to take a lamb, you need to slaughter it, you need to put an offering, in other words, for the Lord. It'll be the Passover sacrifice, and that you have to dip the blood and put it on the doorpost. We'll get into that in the lectures. This was called the blood of the lamb, the Passover lamb. And as you can see in this graphic, that's the type of the lamb that would have been placed on the altar of offering. Now let's look at 5 constructs of this text word. Number 1, it's a lamb. Number 2, it's a lamb without blemish. Number 3, it has to be killed at twilight. Number 4, it's the Lord's Passover. And number 5, they were not allowed to break any of its bones. The very first Passover sacrifice, there are more, but I'm just using 5 examples. There's 5 constructs of that Passover sacrifice. If we move that graphic slightly out the way and we look at it now, let's have a look at the New Testament fulfillment of the Old Testament type. John the Baptist says, behold the Lamb of God. So that's the antitype. Let's see if we can fulfill the antitype against the type. Number 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Let's start with number 1. John 1:29. And the next day, John, that's John the Baptist, saw Jesus and said, behold the Lamb of God. So do we have a correlation between the two? Yes, we do. What about he has to be killed, number 2, he is without blemish. 1 Peter 1:19 says, Christ is without blemish and without spot. Do we have a correlation? Perfect. What time did Jesus die? Matthew 27 explains about the 9th hour, Jesus yielded up the ghost. That's twilight. That's 3 o'clock in the afternoon as the sun is about to set. Do we have a correlation? Bang on target. What about he is the Lord's Passover? Does the Bible tell us anywhere? What's written in 1 Corinthians 5 verse 7? For indeed Christ our Passover was sacrificed for us. Is there a correlation? Absolutely. 4 out of 5. What about number 5? Do not break any of his bones. Do you remember what happened, before I show you this last text, what happened to the Passover sacrifice? They put him on a skewer. They put the Passover lamb on a skewer and they roasted him. So they didn't break any of his bones, and they had a spear that went through him. Remember that? Have a look what happens here in John 19. Then the soldiers came to Jesus and they did not break his legs. Do we have a correlation there? Absolutely. 5 out of 5. Isn't that magnificent? The Passover lamb in the Old Testament type is fulfilled in the Passover lamb in the New Testament antitype. Perfect correlation between the Old Testament and the New Testament. Now, if you were to cut the Bible in half and throw the old away, you would miss half that blessing. And that's why in Isaiah 53 verses 4 to 7 it says, surely he was wounded for our transgressions, and with his stripes we are healed. He is brought as a lamb to the slaughter, so opened he not his mouth. Look at this graphic for a moment. The type lamb, and as Jesus comes in and is fulfilling the antitype